Cycle ride at this hour on Monday. You are a king.
No, it is a case I am lagi nganggur. I'm unemployed.
Well, everybody is nganggur at this moment because we work from home.
Yes, but there's kerja bakti and there's kerja yang dapat gaji.
It's really a great pleasure for us to have you, Rodney. At this time of the year, actually, you usually visit us at this time of the year. Because of the pandemic, you are not able to travel. However, our spirit of this friendship should not fade away due to the COVID-19. That is why I will invite you to come to this virtual room and have a little chat with some of us, teachers and also students of Kampung Inggris Semarang. Mrs. Yunita, my students, and everybody in this room, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Today we have our friend, faithful friend, Pak Rodney from Sydney, Australia. It is 1 o'clock in Semarang and 4 o'clock in Sydney. Am I right, Rodney?
That's right. I had to hurry back, Rahani.
Okay. Already.
Yes,
Yeah, already in the room is Mrs. Rohani, Ibu Yunita Irmawati. Some of our colleagues, teachers of English in Kampung Inggris Semarang, Miss Bece, and also some students are already in this room. Natalia, Fesi, Alfidi, Laras, some other may come in later. Rodney, our plan for today is actually mainly to practice English, giving opportunity to our students to practice English. We have used all sort of media to help our students get exposed to how English is used, especially by native speakers of English who were born, raised, and then speak English on daily basis in the life of the family and community. However, we also have the strong need, actually urgent need also to give opportunity for our students to get exposed to how English is actually used by a real person that I can talk with. And we are very fortunate to have you, Rodney. And our plan for today is to understand each other better by taking a topic of understanding Australian culture. As a preparation, I have sent a link to an article to our students with the hope that they have actually read the article so that they have some questions or ideas that we can share and also to ask to you. Today, we are going to have you, Rodney, to speak for a while, maybe for 10 to 15 minutes, and let our students practice listening to how English is used by Rodney from Australia. And after that, I will have opportunity to give our students opportunity to ask you questions to try their English. Rodney, the floor is yours.
So in terms of topic, anything that I feel like speaking of, Rahani, or specifically to the link that you actually sent?
The topic of Australian culture is a generic topic to trigger the discussion. However, of course, you are the resource person. It is very valuable for us to learn from you how actually the culture is put into practice in the real life by you yourself as a member of the Australian community, Australian family. Of course, with the reference to mutual understanding, you can of course always compare your experience both in Australia and in Indonesia, Rodney.
Okay. Well, firstly, I will just make a comment that I would, under normal circumstances, be making some sort of effort to come and visit Indonesia at this time, because actually perhaps a little bit before this, ideally from a season perspective in terms of 4 seasons in this country and the 2 seasons that you experience over there in Indonesia, it's normally opportunistic or a good opportunity for me to travel over there and visit towards the latter part of winter, which is now just finishing up here, to finish off the cold season by coming into Indonesia's warm season, spending my 3-4 weeks or so visiting people, then coming back to Australia, whereby it would already have warmed up by quite some degree in that 4 weeks of my travelling and visiting friends over in Indonesia. But yes, as we know, travelling for everyone and personal security is challenged and changed in so many, many ways now. This is a new world. It's a world in which so many of us have not experienced. And from my perspectives here in Australia, in terms of our COVID-19 or coronavirus challenges and what I understand it's like over there in Java, all of us are being confronted by very significant personal challenges in our movement, personal challenges in terms of meeting or greeting and seeing friends, or spending time with family at specific cultural events, such in the case of Indonesians, perhaps during Idul Fitri and Ramadan and those sorts of things. So all of us are undergoing significant changes. And on a personal note, my own father has not been terribly well. And with lockdowns here in Australia, it was actually quite difficult for me to travel from my location here in Sydney to a country area to the north of the state to go and visit my parents. So my own movements were restricted even on a very, very local and domestic level. So the notion of actually traveling internationally is even a greater challenge. So here in this country, we have restrictions on people moving out of the country. You actually have to have a very good reason to travel internationally. But getting back to some of the cultural aspects, I have to confess that I've only read the link once, and I haven't had enough time to really review it properly to do it justice. But a couple of the things that I can remember is there was this reference to mateship, which is probably another way of referring to friendship. So mateship can mean different things to different people. I like to just refer to it as being a friendship of sorts. It's something that you can use in a generic sense in terms of either referring to people you've been associated with for a very long time, through work, through social circumstances. In our military, there's actually a great reference to mateship in our military forces. And what I would say of the word mateship, it's become a little bit romanticized with the passing of time, and it's possibly not quite so, how do I put it? It possibly doesn't have quite the same meaning that it might have had many, many years ago, because mateship usually refers to people who are enduring or suffering some sort of personal challenge or circumstances that are not the best. So it's usually a case of mateship gets referred to under the most common circumstances of people who are enduring hardship. So when, for example, in this country, we've had economic downturn, we haven't experienced much in the way of social upheaval, but let's just say economic hardship, or if military people have been posted to theatres of war and people are suffering under some sort of hardship, they usually refer to mateship under those circumstances, where mutual support of one another refers to mateship. It's a slightly more romantic notion these days. And what I would say is it's possibly, in terms of our modern age, here in 2020, it's perhaps not quite so referred to as often as it might have been, with the exception of what I will say of political leaders who might actually want to try and derive some sort of point of advantage or point of political leverage out of using the word mateship when they're trying to get something through or something across to the Australian public. So it has different meanings and it has different uses. There's what I'll describe as the good use, or the original intention of the use of the word from our times in history and times of hardship, to where I'd say times now political people try to make use of it for their own political advantage. It's possibly become a little bit more a little bit more of a romantic notion now, because what I would say of the way that the population has moved in a little bit of a general direction is more about individuality and unfortunately a little bit more about materialism. So that notion of mateship is not quite so strong. However, where there have been some good examples of mateship behaviours, I would say in recent times with our pandemic, our lockdown, there's been a real movement of people looking out for their neighbours, checking to see that their neighbours are okay. In some cases, people haven't been able to go and spend time with families and friends that are at some long distance from them. But what there has been during this pandemic, and I'll say it's probably one of the better examples of mateship, is that neighbours are actually been checking up on neighbours to see how they are, particularly when we have old and frail or people living at home alone, or are sick and unwell and living under those circumstances. So I have a neighbour here, for example, who's not very well, and I just go next door to make sure she's okay from time to time. She has medical staff and nursing staff that come by to visit her. But yeah, there's been more of a case of people checking up on their neighbours, and we haven't been so good as that as a society over the years. And I would say that we have that as a bit of a transition or a change that's happened here in our community. One of the things that I would sort of reference to people online that are listening at the moment that might not be so aware is that here in my country, I would say that we have a tendency not to be so close to our neighbours as perhaps people living in kampungs are there in Java. There's a lot more of you living much more closely together, so therefore most people have an understanding of what their neighbours are doing or what their family are up to or what their jobs are, or you know, how they live from day to day. There's a lot more interaction with kampung neighbours. It's not such a case here in Australian neighbourhoods. We live a slightly more disparate and distant existence. We know who our neighbours are. I mean, I chat to people that are around me, but it's not a case of just casually dropping in just to see how they are. But as I said, this pandemic has actually brought out what I'll describe as a better quality of concern in people here. So that's been a good thing. So yeah, other things to do with our culture that I've probably referred to is, and I've noticed this in terms of particularly work hierarchies, is that there is probably a flatter level of hierarchy here amongst Australian society. Where
are you referring to the concept of egalitarian, Rodney?
I am. A notion of being equal or not better or lesser than a person who's next to you. For example, in the workspace, people can be respected entirely for their capacities to do better things than perhaps you at work, or are more skilled or smarter or more experienced in certain things. But everyone has their part to play in a team setting, and all members of a team should be equally valued. Yes, of course, we have managers. Yes, we have people who are leads in some capacity, whether they're technical leads or community leads or financial leads, people who are experts in their areas. But in terms of respect for one another in a work setting, I would say that there is less hierarchy involved in a work structure in the Australian sphere. Would you like me to continue, or is this a point for where perhaps questions can be sought?
Yes, that is a very, very good opening, Rodney, for you to introduce the concept of friendship, which is changing over time to the perspective of the Australian community, and also the egalitarian spirit in the context of working context. That is the egalitarian in the work hierarchy, which is very interesting. I hope my students start to get familiar with the topic, and also, of course, build their courage later to interact. Rodney, thank you. That is a very, very good introduction and opening. And we will start to interact, because the main purpose of today is to give opportunity to our teachers and also students to try their English, so that their confidence will improve. I will give first opportunity.
Rahani,
Yes, Rodney.
Rahani, sorry, if I could just add something slightly to the
Sure,
egalitarian comment.
Sure.
A point of difference that I'd really like to make, this is obviously thoughts come to me as we're coming along, but I've just made a point there about the workspace, but something that I'd also like to make as a point of distinction between perhaps we as a member of Australians in an Australian community versus those who are our forebearers, being English. We are the descendants of English people from England. But what I would say to you, there is a world of difference between a typical English societal makeup and Australian societal makeup. The English are far more conscious and aware of where they are stationed in their societal strata than where Australians are in theirs. And that is a much, much less egalitarian society. So even though we are the descendants of the English nation, 200 years ago, of course, as a society, we have developed differently to our English forebears. Even to this point in today, the English would actually see themselves somewhere within the niches of their society from a point of not such an egalitarian perspective as would in their own societal perspective.
That is very interesting. That is very interesting in that the Australian society actually developed their own unique characteristic, which essentially different from their ancestor. First opportunity will go to our teachers. We have here, I will introduce Rodney. We already have our colleagues, Miss Bece already online, Miss Tri, Miss Ari, Miss Willis. Any one of you will go raise your hand using the icon of raising hand if you would like to, or raise your hand physically if your video is on. Have a go. And please unmute by yourself. Yes, Miss Bece, have a go. Have a go.
My audio is on.
Yes, your video is on.
Can I ask one question now, or?
Yes, please go ahead with your question.
Okay, right. So first thing first, hello, Mr. Rodney. My name is Bece here.
Hello, how are you?
Yes, great, thank you. It's nice to have a little chat or share some of your experience there. And my question is a little bit away from our previous discussions, but I think it's still related. I'm interested to, well, this is one of my dreams to continue my study there in Australia. I was wondering, how do Australians treat or have a social life with or social view to the international students there? I heard that Sydney is a great place to continue your study there. Thank you.
Okay,
Yes.
Rodney, can you hear the question clearly?
I heard most of it with regards to how is life there for international students in Sydney.
Excellent.
Yes.
Yes, excellent.
And I would suspect that what thoughts do I have in terms of engagement between national students and local people in what's available for them. And what I would say to that end is there are a couple of opportunities people from Indonesia in terms of engaging with local student body associations that I'm aware of. So on campus, Indonesian student community. The other place that I'm aware of is actually Perth actually also has actually quite a lot of Indonesians out and about in Perth as well. So I've even seen in some of our museums over there, there's artifacts from Bali and Java that are sitting in museums. But aside from that, there's always student bodies on campus that cater for those sorts of interactions. The other thing too is I'm also aware of there being local Indonesian community activities here that take place to celebrate traditional sorts of days for the Indonesian community. For example, Independence Day, Hari Raya Merdeka, is actually celebrated here by the Indonesian community, and they have an open day to the rest of the Australian public to come along to parks to come in and join in their culture and their food. So events like that take place. Opportunities do exist. So I'm more familiar with Sydney, Melbourne and Perth. I would imagine in the likes of Brisbane and Darwin would be similar, but I couldn't make any reference to what sort of tertiary institutions that are there, study institutions that are there that would be catering to your specific interest. But I certainly know there's a lot of choices in Sydney, Melbourne and Perth.
Thank you, Rodney. That's a very interesting idea of understanding how the student life, especially with regard to international student life in Australia, especially for those who plan to study in Australia. Next chance will go again to our staff members and teachers that already are online. Yes, have a go. Anyone of the teachers, please? Miss Willis, Miss Tri, Miss Eri are already online. Anyone of you will go? Please unmute yourself and start to speak. Okay, Ibu Yunita. Please unmute yourself.
Yes. Thank you, Pak Rohani. Hello, Mr. Rodney Saye.
Unita, if I'm not if I was not certain, I think there's Anna. There's chickens everywhere there. They wouldn't be very good. All right. Yes, you have a question, Unita.
Yes, thank you. The first question is that I think in Australia it has almost the same with the same culture. I mean, in terms of giving greetings and having conversations. The first time, sometimes you've been here in Indonesia for some time, so I think you are quite familiar with how we address each other. Well, I was Pak Rohani calls you sometimes with your first name and sometimes with your last name. My first question is that how should we address you or people from Australia with the best address that we can say? For example, if we meet somebody from Australia or from other countries. That is my first question. Here in Indonesia, sometimes we call Pak, Ibu, Ma'am. When we meet someone from Australia, how should we call you in a better way? And the second one is that when we talk about relationship, is there any when you were here in Indonesia compared to I mean when Australian people, and what do you think are the best parts or the best thing are from Australian and Indonesian? I mean, the ones that can make us have good relationship. What are the the great characters from Australia, especially. Thank you
So, sorry, great. You need to. What do you
very
mean by
much.
great character? I'm not clear on great character.
Well, there are typical personalities from Indonesia. Uh, People say that our people here in Indonesia are kind. What about Australia? Australian people, I mean. What I don't meet Australian people a lot, but I see in your great personalities. I mean, um, you are very kind and you are very friendly to us. Uh, can you perhaps tell us the characters of Australian people? Uh, Pak Rohani told me once that the difference between British and Australian lecturers can be seen from the way they talk and communicate with the students in the classroom. Uh, Perhaps that can make us, what is it? Yeah, communicate or deal with the Australian people better. I mean, when we see Indonesian, for example, in the classroom when they are the lecturer, sometimes they give us, I don't know, we have quite different characters. When I was in the university here in Indonesia, when we meet our lecturers who studied in Australia, the ones who studied in Indonesia and the ones who studied in the United States, they bring certain characters from the countries that they studied.
Okay. All right. I'll try and answer some of these things. Firstly, with regards to greeting each other or how to refer to me or others like me, generally speaking, we have a tendency not to be terribly formal in the way that we meet and greet each other. So if you have an idea of what my first name is, my Christian name, or Namakachil, you can call me that quite comfortably. So to refer to me as Rod, as the shortened version of my full name, or Rodney, is more than acceptable. For you to be referring to me to being Mr. Rodney Saye, that becomes a bit formal. It's the sort of greeting that you might actually engage if perhaps I'm your employer, or potentially your employer, or perhaps someone that you might be doing a peer-to-peer business exchange or transaction with in the first hand. The only time that I actually sort of refer to other friends as Mr. someone is usually if it's a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek humour. In other words, we've lifted our reference to each other to a higher level of formality than what we would normally do so. And I'm going to use some words here which might not sound polite or might not be very well understood, but basically at that point, we're taking the piss out of each other, which means we're not being terribly serious. So being called Pack Ride or Tuan or Mr. when I'm wandering around Central Java by other Indonesian people, to me, is something that I understand fully is a normal mark of respect offered to me by others who are saying hello to me or greeting me. So, you know, it was quite often for me to be in my Indonesian office there at MGTI back all those many years ago, when people who were my everyday colleague would call me Pack Rod. I was just called Pack Rod. And while I found that novel, I also understood the respect that was involved. So like lots of these things, for many of us, it's actually developing an understanding of where tradition and culture lie with each grouping of people respectively. What I would say in terms of building relationships and being better understood with each other is people who are authentic and respectful, even if they get traditions a little bit wrong, will be tolerated and accepted and forgiven. It's just if I come barging into your house with very, very disrespectful language, shouting and yelling and carrying on about how badly I've been treated about something, no one in your culture or my culture is going to welcome me. So at so many levels, there's plenty of things in common between the two of us as groupings of people. One of the things that I was going to say, which I find of a huge similarity between Indonesian people and Australian people, is a capacity to self-deprecate, which means not take yourself too seriously. Yes, I understand that particularly Javanese, but Indonesians in general are a bit more softly spoken than perhaps the average Australian person, who's a little bit loud and demanding sometimes. But what I would say is, in terms of once we get to know each other, I found that there was, with my many peers and friends over there in Indonesia, there was a very, very common sense of humour. We had a very similar type of humour, more so than other people than I perhaps met. I would describe having a better sense of shared humour with an Indonesian person than I would an American. And Americans are bule, but I'd actually describe having a greater sense of shared humour than I do the American culture. I actually find them hard to understand sometimes. Like their sense of humour is really poor. Generally speaking. So that's my bias. That's my personal bias. But that goes with travels and people that I've met. Sometimes I just find Americans a bit too serious and completely devoid of any sense of humour. Indonesians that I've met all over the place, you know, all over your vast archipelago, the thing I found in common is most of you actually have a good sense of humour, even in times of terrible how can I put it? When things aren't going well, there's still a sense of humour there, which is a very, very strong part of coping with what's going on. In terms of character types, you, for example, is I would have an aversion, a personal aversion, to having too much to do with young Australians wandering around in Kuta on a Friday or a Saturday night, having drunken too much bintang beer. None of them are behaving very well. None of them are very well behaved. And they're just there to have, you know, a party, and perhaps they're not too respectful of local cultures and traditions. And I shy away from having anything to do with those people. I have travelled, obviously not just through Indonesia, but I have travelled through parts of Southeast Asia. And by and large, where I've seen most bule or orang putih treat other local people quite well and be respectful, some people are just horrendous. Like, I mean, very, very disrespectful of local people. And it sort of doesn't matter who they are, whether they've been Australians or Americans or English or Russians. By and large, it would seem to me that some of the wealthier travellers just seem to think that local people are there to serve them. So that does not impress me very much at all. People who perhaps get more into your local community in terms of deciding that they want to commit to what's going on, generally speaking, have a greater interest in participating, observing, and understanding what cultural norms exist in the host country, being, in your case, Indonesia, Central Java. To give you a little example of different character types, when I was in my kampung many, many years ago in Lempong Sari, I made a very, very big effort, even though my bahasa Indonesia was very bad, to go and say hello to all my neighbours. I went up and down my street and I said hello to all my neighbours in the kampung, so that they knew that there was this Australian person living in their street. I was there on work business. My time was limited. I only had a contract of 15 months, so I wasn't going to be there forever. I, you know, made a note to them that it didn't take them long to work out that I couldn't speak much Indonesian, but that I was there for work. I wanted to stay in the kampung. Circumstances where I was from Australia, all my personal things. And I did that at every door. And every so often I actually go across the road to hang out, as it were, at the warung. And there was an Ibu Janda there who used to give me a bit of a hard time. She liked to make, as I said, particular humor that you people have, and she would give me a really hard time, this woman. And one time, she said to me that, sorry, there were three other bule in the kampung, and they were all Canadian. They were North American bule. And they would never come into the warung to say hello or stop by and have gorengan or snacks or iced tea with the locals, because it was a real hangout there in Lempong Sari, and it's something that I would do. And the Ibu Janda said to me, Mr. Rod, obviously in Bahasa Indonesia, she'd say, Mr. Rod, we like you better than those other bule. You're more polite to us. You're more friendly. And I knew these Canadians were really nice people, and they were. They were friendly to me. They were really polite, but they were shy. They were malu. And I said to my Ibu Janda, I said, no. They're nice people. They're orang baik, but they're pemalu. These are shy people. They didn't want to engage in the kampung or at the warung because, as they said to me, none of them spoke Bahasa Indonesia at all. So they gave the impression of being sombong and tidak ramah. They look like they were aloof and not friendly. And I said, no, they're not that at all.
Rodney, that's illustration is very, very interesting, yeah, because you actually had the chance actually to experience by yourself how actually Indonesian also considered how foreigners behave in our environment. And that is interesting to find, actually, as you said, we share commonality in the sense of humor. That is really interesting. Miss Yunita, is there any one of students of yours in your class that you spotted in this room?
There are, I have Sulfa and Fessi with us.
Can you please encourage them to speak?
Sulfa, are you there? Can you ask something to Pak Rod?
Yeah, this is the time for students to ask questions with the guidance of the teacher. So you please encourage your student to speak to Pak Rodney.
Hello, Fessi, you can unmute yourself. Ask something, perhaps the holiday place in Australia you can visit, or you can ask about Pak Rod's hobby. Fessi? Yes, you can unmute yourself and ask Pak Rodney about anything you want to know. You can introduce your Pak Rod 1 or 2 questions. You can ask him. Yes, please, Fessi.
Hello, Fessi.
Fessi is in the 4th grade, Pak Rod.
Nice to see you, Fessi. Nice to see you, Fessi. What would you like to ask?
Ask Pak Rodney's hobby, Fessi. Fessi likes singing very much. Ask Pak Rodney whether he likes singing or not, or perhaps he has other hobbies. Fessi. Fessi is a shy person too. She's not actually. So, Fessi, can you unmute yourself? You can ask one question to Pak Rodney. Sulfa, are you there? Fessi, you can try. Yeah, you're on. Come on. Ask Pak Rodney a question, Fessi. Yes, one question please, Fessi. want to wait? Sulfa, are you there? You want to study in Australia. Now it's time for you to ask something to Pak Rodney, please.
I don't have a problem. Mr. Rod, in this COVID-19 pandemic, what is the Australian government policy regarding this pandemic?
Can you repeat slowly, Sulfa, your question?
What is the Australian government policy regarding the pandemic of COVID-19?
Oh, you, Pak Rodney,
Yes.
can you? Yeah.
Yes, I heard that. I heard that. I had that. Actually, the control of coronavirus or the pandemic 19 varies from what we refer to as state to state. Of course, we have a central government, being our federal government, that has certain directives that are national or international in nature. For example, to give you an example of the federal or national perspective, I would not be allowed to travel to Indonesia at the moment without specific permission from our immigration department, and I would have to have very, very good reasons to travel there presently. I would have to have some very pressing family matters or very pressing work matters before I was actually allowed to go to Indonesia at present with the current policy in our country. I can't just go for a holiday to Bali or Java just because I want to, or it's been a long time since I've visited Indonesia, which it has been. It's been over 3 years now since I have visited. So at a national level, I would not be allowed to visit Indonesia at the moment. At a state level, there is restrictions in my movements between this city, Sydney, and my going to another city in a state in Queensland called Brisbane. So once again, they have restrictions of movement between the two states. I would have to have a very good reason to go to Brisbane in Queensland at the moment. However, outside of that, I can travel in my state, I can travel around my city, but I cannot be with any more than 10 friends or family members at one time in my house. So a restriction of 10 in my house, and in public spaces, if I go to a restaurant, if I go to a bar, if I go to a cafe now, I have to give them my name and I have to give them my phone number so they can find me if someone has been found to have the virus at that place. So that pretty much covers it. So there is still reasonable freedoms here now. We had very, very tight control earlier, but we have reasonable freedoms being given back to us now.
Thank you, Mr. Rodney. Thank you. Thank you. Miss Unita, did you spot another student of yours?
Not yet. Just in 2
Okay.
students.
Miss Eri, are you copying, Miss Eri? Please unmute yourself, Miss Eri.
Yes, Mr. Rohani.
Did you spot any student of yours in this room?
No, sir.
Right. Okay. Miss Willis, are you copying, Miss Willis?
Miss Willis is taking a call, Pak Rohani.
Okay. Fine. Okay, Miss Tri, are you copying, Miss Tri?
Yes, Mr.
Do you spot any students of yours in this room?
Yes.
Okay.
One student of my English for teenager class.
Okay, can you please provide help and encourage him or her to communicate with Pak Rodney?
Okay, I'm sorry.
Can you please encourage and provide help? to your students to communicate with Pak Rodney.
Okay, Viti, could you please turn on your microphone? Hello, Viti, can you hear me?
Yes, miss, I can.
Okay, please ask a question and please try to communicate with Mr. Rodney.
Okay.
Please, could you...
Hello, Pak Rod. My name is Sweetie. Nice to meet you. I'm 14 years old. I would like to ask you, in the future, I would like to going abroad for my study. I'm interested in fisheries and aquaculture. Is there any reputable university for the subject?
I'm assuming you're talking about in this country in terms of that topic, Whitney. Is that the case here in Australia?
Fisheries and aquaculture.
Well, yes, in this country, absolutely. Between fisheries in terms of fish farming, we have actually a number of places, certainly down the eastern seaboard of Australia, going all the way to Tasmania, a number of fisheries that are actually set up as commercial farming for the likes of salmon. And there's also a lot of trout here, which are freshwater fish. And a lot of those things are set up as farming institutions. We also have a local fish called barramundi, which is fish farmed, and there is a very, very large commercial fishing fleet here as well that goes out and goes fishing for wild sea fish. So there's a lot of scope for that here in this country. We actually have a very large industry in that regard. Obviously, land-based rural industries are bigger here in this country, but we have very significant fish farming opportunities, and I would dare say there would be fishery education courses to support that industry as well.
Thank you for your answer. Is there opportunity to have a scholarship?
A scholarship?
Yes.
I couldn't answer that in the first hand. I don't know what the circumstances of the courses on offer are. I have to say, I'm not an expert in the tertiary area, Whitty. I'm sure it's something that could be sought as an online information exercise or a research. Anything's possible, but I really couldn't give you an honest answer in that regard.
Thank you. Back to Ministry. Did you find any student of yours again in this room?
I think no, sir. Only one student.
Fine. All right. Now, Miss Eri again, right? I give you opportunity. Is there any students of yours in this room?
I'm sorry, no, sir. There is no student.
Fine. Okay. Now I'll give opportunity to any members of the English community. Either you are an active student or non-active students, alumni, or members of the family. Your chance is now to communicate and try your English to speak with Pak Rodney. Have a go. Anyone? At the corner, I have Miss Rahma. Yes, have a go.
Yes, yeah, okay. Thank you. Hello, Mr. Rodney.
Hello, Rahma.
Yes, I'm Rahma. Let me ask you about the global pandemic. The global pandemic, which must have taken a major toll on sector, including the economy. industry and tourism, how do you think Australia can rebuild so that Australia can rise again? Thank you.
Australia or Indonesia, rather, or the whole world. I think everyone, oh my goodness, everyone has been so terribly impacted by this. I mean, I'm terribly aware of places like Bali and friends of mine who live in Thailand and have jobs associated with the tourist industry through all that part of the world have been terribly impacted by the loss of business. The same thing has happened here in our country. So I think at a general level, what I would say to you is so many of us, because of closed borders, are having to rethink business in terms of thinking domestic, not international. So much has been shut down. I mean, there's virtually no international traffic coming into Australia at the moment. So tourist operators are doing their very, very best here in this country to pitch the idea of having a local holiday, doing something local. The other thing that has actually also started to take place in this country, because we had such a global reliance on many other countries as part of industry and production, there's a whole range of manufacturing industries here in Australia that are starting to reopen again that have been closed for years. So because of borders shut and products, as in imports, not making it into the country, there's been a renaissance, which is a French word for renewal or beginning again, for us to actually have local industry starting up again, which I actually think is a really good thing. Unemployment here is terrible at the moment. I think it's above 10%, which is an all-time high for us here in this country. We haven't had unemployment like that for a very, very long time, and it's impacted millions of people. But some of the good signs are resilience, self-sufficiency, and local industry that's starting up again. And all I can say is perhaps the same thing for countries like Indonesia as well. Rather than relying on international tourism in places like Bali or Java or Georgia or things like that, local people need to get out there a bit more and visit their own tourist locations, and obviously support for local industry and business as well from a government perspective, and also hopefully people having the courage to start again.
Thank you, Rodney. That's a very good answer, and also gives some us perspective that this pandemic is actually a global problem. Yeah, it is not only about Australia. It's about us. It's about us, all the citizens of this global village. Rodney, it's time for you to pick up randomly to ask questions to our students. Give them opportunity to interact with you. Look at their names in this virtual room. You can pick up randomly and you can talk to them, asking questions about this topic or something else. The purpose is to give them opportunity to try their English. Rodney.
Okay, so I can ask anyone anything. Is that the story?
Yes, anyone, anything.
Even if it looks like it might frighten them.
That's part of the lesson. That is part of the lesson.
All right then. I'm going to ask a young lad by the name of Aris. Where does he come from?
Aris, okay. Aris, okay. Unmute Aris.
Hello, Pak Rodney. Hello, Pak Rodney. My name Aris, 10 years old. I would like to ask, I have two questions. The first, in this COVID condition, are the children study from home? If yes, what kind of application to be used? The second, what the favorite foods in Australia for the kids? Thank you.
Oh dear, yes, okay. Bit like school children in Indonesia, school children in Australia have been dramatically impacted by what's going on, although our schools have remained open for children who still want to go to school. So even though children have been encouraged to stay home and learn from home, and using things like, of course, Zoom meetings and WebEx, and I think there's another one. Children still have the opportunity to go to school if they can't be looked after at home. So just say, for example, if mother and father are not home, if they both have work and school is a safe place for a child to go to, then school is still open here in Australia. Now, the other question, favourite food for children. I think lollies are favourite food for children everywhere, aren't they? The problem is getting the children to eat healthy things all the time. They don't like their greens and they don't like their fruit and vegetable. Goodness me. I think maybe favourites over there in Indonesia, if I'm not mistaken, for kids are gorengan. I used to like gorengan when I was there as well, those fried things like tofu and tempeh and things like that. And of course, the favourite there in Semarang is, what is it? I've forgotten. Rahani, can you help me? The fried, what's the Semarang food, the fried snack?
Tiki.
No, it's,
Lumpia.
Lumpia. Oh yes, Aris, lumpia Semarang was my favourite food when I was there. Okay, so there you go. Here in Australia, goodness me, I think the terrible thing that's the favourite food is maybe a Kentucky Fried or bloody McDonald's. So McDonald's restaurants. Kids like to go to McDonald's restaurants after school, which I think is just terrible. But anyway, does that answer your question?
Okay. Thank you, Aris. That was very, very good question. Rodney, we still have some time. Can you pick up again randomly?
Yes. Okay. Who else is out there? Looks like they've all. Is there a person there? I think there's a person called Redme there that's been very quiet.
Okay. Hello, but Redme has no microphone, unfortunately.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the microphone is not on, so we are not able to talk to him.
Well, that's a great trick. I'm going to remember that for next time to get my own microphone too. So, well done to Redme. Congratulations, Salamat Sekali, for that. Now, who else have we got here? I think. Oh, I know someone who's been a little bit quiet.
Okay.
Yes, I'd actually like to try again with Fessi.
Fessi, hello, Fessi. Back to you, Fessi.
Hello again, Fessi. Would you like to tell me where you are?
Ibu Yunita, you can provide help?
Yes, Fessi, where are you now?
Yes.
Fessi, are you at home or are you at school? Is that home or school that you're at now?
I'm trying to help to rephrase the question. Hello, Fessi. This is Pak Rohani speaking. Fessi, are you now at home or at school?
School.
At school. All right. Very good. Your English is good. Keep going, Pak Rodney, with the next question. Fessi is getting more confident.
Okay. Fessi, are you in Semarang?
Yes.
Okay. What part of Semarang? Where in Semarang? You're not Candi Baru, not Lempong Sari, not Villa Marina, not Simpan Lima. Somewhere else. Okay. Fessi, What do you like to do? What is your hobby? What is your favorite hobby?
Swimming.
Swimming. I like swimming too. Do you go to swimming many times? Do you swim one time a week? How many times in the week do you swim?
Miss Yunita, you can provide help.
How many times do you swim in a week, Fassi? Once a week? Twice a week? One or two? Once a week.
Thank you, thank you. Pak Rodney, one more question for our student, please.
Okay, I'm thinking perhaps, Eri, would you be happy to take a question?
Which one did you pick up, Pak Rodney?
I think it was Eri, E-R-Y.
Okay. Eri is one of our staff.
Oh, I beg your pardon.
Fine, it's okay, because Miss Eri is also practicing with us. Miss Eri, your question about Australian culture, today's topic.
Yes, sir. Yeah, first, I'm so sorry, my connection is a bit bad in here, so the voice is not clear from here.
Okay.
Yes, actually, I was wondering about the multiculturalism in Australia, as we know that the country is made up of so many different cultures, and I'm wondering about how they socialize in their daily life. Is there any particular way to connect one culture to one another? Something like that?
I would, that's a bit of a difficult one to answer. There's obviously, you're quite correct in saying that it is a multicultural country insofar as we have basically a diverse range of cultures from all over the world. Within that, what I would say to you is there has been a tendency for people of similar backgrounds to actually find themselves grouping together in certain regions around the cities and the country in which we have. So say, for example, here in my city, here in Sydney, there are regions in which there are groupings of particularly ethnic backgrounds. So here in my suburb, here in Ashfield, there's actually quite a strong presence of people from China, also a few Koreans. If you were to go to a place called Cabramatta, there's a very strong presence of Vietnamese people. If you get to go to a place called Kensington, Kingsford, there's actually, for example, a strong presence of and locals living in that area. In terms of everyone getting together and joining together, I guess possibly what I would say there is work and workplaces is quite an equalizer in that there is all manner of people that come together from all manner of backgrounds that work together in office spaces and work disciplines. So I can recall in my last job that there was a huge wide range of people that I was working with on any given day. There were Chinese people, Indian people, Italian people, obviously Anglo-Celtic Australian people, also Greek people, Spanish people. That's just in my office. So what I would say to you as a starting point, the great equalizer is people working together on a daily basis. Then from that, I would suggest that there becomes greater social cohesion in terms of friendship that might be built outside of the workspace. There's also, within those communities, as I mentioned, community identifications where traditions are celebrated by relative communities, and they're open events. They're events that are open to the public. They're not closed to just that community. They are held and they are advertised. So, okay, say for example, here in my suburb or my area, we have things called councils which look after our areas, and they will have celebrations of cultures which are actually conducted in my local park. I have a taman, or a park, which is just around the corner from my house, and different cultural celebrations will be letterbox drops. So there would be notices dropped into people's letterboxes, and you would know that there were cultural events just around the corner. So those are perhaps a couple of examples of how things work.
Okay, Miss Eri, is there any following up question after you got that answer?
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Rodney.
Thank you. I also would like to try to talk to someone already in the room. Alfidi, are you copying, Alfidi? Okay, Alfidi, can you unmute? Hello, hello. Whose student is it? Miss Unita?
Miss Willis. Miss Willis.
Okay, Miss Willis, student.
Miss Willis, student.
Okay, hello, Miss Willis. Are you on air, Miss Willis? Yes, Miss Willis, can you provide help for Alfidi to try his English to Rodney?
Hello, Vidi. Are you there?
Hello, yes.
Hello.
Hello, Vidi. Okay, if you have any question to Mr. Rodney, you can ask anything. Vidi.
Yes.
Okay, Vidi.
Come on.
Let's try to ask about Mr.
Okay, firstly, hello Willis. It's Willis, is it? Willis?
Yes, yes.
Yes, hello Willis, how are you?
Okay, Vidi. Follow Miss Willis, Vidi.
Hello.
Yeah. Okay. Let's try to say what's your hobby. Okay, Vidi? Repeat after.
Okay.
What's your hobby? Hmm? Vidi.
Maybe there is a connection problem as the picture is on and off. Anyway, Rodney, you can answer that question so that PD also practice listening.
Okay. Hello, Weedy. It's Pat Rod here speaking. In terms of my hobby, I have lots of hobbies that I like and enjoy, but one of the hobbies mentioned earlier by the other student was swimming, and I actually do enjoy swimming. I enjoy the water a lot here in Australia. We have lots of lakes and rivers and the sea and ocean everywhere. So maybe I go to a swimming pool, or maybe I go to the river, or maybe I like to go to the beach. So swimming in all sorts of locations here. And in this country, swimming is best in our summer season when it's nice and hot. So not so much fun when it's cold, which we have. We have cold season here and we have hot season. Swimming much more enjoyable when it's our hot season or summer.
Thank you. I am trying also to speak to Natalia. Natalia, are you copying?
Yes, Pak Rodney. Halo.
Hello.
Rahma, can you please stop sharing, Rahma? You push the wrong button, Rahma.
Udah.
You push the wrong button. Please push stop sharing. Stop sharing at the top.
Iya.
Makanya video jangan gerak-gerak, dimatiin videonya. Ada orang. Kalau belajar tuh diem dia, kalau nggak tuh dimatiin. Video kalau kayak gitu kan nggak menghormati orang ngomong. Lihat orang ngobrol ya.
Rahma, can you push stop sharing on top because you push the wrong button? Thank you. Okay, back to Natalia again. Hello, Natalia.
Yes, hello. Pak
Okay,
Rodney.
yes, your question for Pak Rodney.
Hello, Pak Rodney. My name is
hello.
Natalia. As we already know that origin or the native peoples in the Aussie is from Aborigine and Torres. So what about you? Where are you from?
Well, my family background is what we would describe as Anglo-Celtic, which is another way of describing me as of English in descent. So both on my mother and my father's side, they have very English background or origins. To go back far enough, and I will confer on this fact, is that on my mother's side, they were free settlers from England a number of generations ago. But on my father's side, and this will be topical, but on my father's side, I come from a convict background. So the lineage or my parents on my father's side, the person who came to this country on my father's side actually came out here as a convict. So he was a man who was part of the jailing system, a criminal, a penjahat. So that's one side, and the other side are free settlers, but both from England.
Okay, thank you, Pak Rodney.
Rodney, thank you very much, and thank you, Natalia. That was very good conversation. I actually wrote over there down in the chat the word mentioned by Pak Rodney, that is convict. Okay, convict. That is spelled C-O-N-V-I-C-T. Again, Rodney, please introduce the word again. What is meant by convict?
Well, convict is a little bit more than just going to jail. A person who was alleged to have had a criminal offence and found guilty would go to jail. So the problem was with England all those years ago, our jails were full and overflowing with people. So in order to satisfy the need to actually put people in a legal system, basically behind bars in a jail, to satisfy that need, they sent people to Australia as convicts. So it's slightly different. It effectively means being deported and jailed. So basically thrown from England all the way to Australia, but still inside of a jailing system. It was slightly different on arrival. They weren't necessarily kept in jails the whole time, because the people who were in the penal colonies, or the convicts that were in those penal colonies, were also used as a form of slave labour. They were actually expected to help develop the colony when they arrived. So a lot of the convicts, with their special skills, whether they were builders or carpenters or bakers or butchers or candlestick makers or manufacturing people of leather, all these people that came out with different skills were actually expected to work when they got to their new home in Australia. Now, just to put that in context, it wasn't hard to become a person in the jailing system or a convict back all those years ago. Effectively, a person who stole bread or stole potatoes or stole meat because they were hungry and had no money could find themselves becoming a convict. Worse case scenarios, in other words, people who stole property of greater value, for example, a person all those years ago in England, if they stole a horse, they could have actually found themselves sentenced to death. So they could actually been hung for their crime. So horse theft was considered to be a very high crime.
That's very interesting part of the history of settlement in Australia. Rodney, it is interesting that Pessie has been rather shy when she talked to you, but actually she was courageous. I received a written message from Pessie. It's a request. It's a question to you. Can you tell me about places of tourism in Australia? And also tell me a little bit about kangaroo.
Well, okay. Places of tourism in Australia are everywhere. We have possibly one of the driest continents in the world. Have a desert area in the middle of Australia. We have lovely beaches all around Australia. Some nice lakes and waterways around the edges of the country. But at the moment, because we've had a lot of rain, the part that is very dry and hot and dusty in the middle of our country now has lots of water and lots of lovely birds flying around everywhere. So tourists from my country, local tourists, are going to see all this lovely water and birds that have come into the middle of our country. So very, very special. We also have snow in the south of the country. Because our country is so vast, in the north of the country, it is tropical, like Indonesia. And in the south of the country, in winter, we have snow, and people like to go skiing and playing on the snowfield. So many things here to do. Lots of things to see, lots of things to do.
Rodney, it's been very good conversation with us about Australian culture and also your experience in being part of the society, living in Australia with experiences of living in Indonesia, so that you have both perspective equally with good understanding. Before we leave, Rodney, can you please give some words of motivation for our students to keep learning and practicing English?
Oh, I have a favorite. I have an absolute favorite for all of you out there who are learning to study English, and I'm going to use this in Bahasa Indonesia, if I may, which is jangan takut salah omong. Don't be frightened to say the wrong thing. People will understand that you're trying to make an effort to speak in English. So, and jangan sampai malu-malu. Don't be until you're embarrassed or shy about it. So have to be a little bit brave and encourage yourself to try again and again if you make a little mistake. Something that I know with some of my friends who have studied English as a second language, that kind of helps remember words and helps you practicing words, is if you go to karaoke, find some lagu-lagu barat and practice singing some Western songs in your karaoke. So singing songs in karaoke that are English, and also don't be frightened to actually try again.
Miss Unita, before we end our today's event, can you please give a words of appreciation for Pak Rodney and also all who are present today?
Pak Rodney, thank you very much for the time, and also it's a very pleasant moment for us to meet. Although we are widely apart, we are very grateful that we can meet today and have conversations. The students of Kampung Inggris Semarang, thank you very much for joining with us. Teachers of Kampung Inggris Semarang, thank you very much for encouraging the students to come today. And perhaps there were also some who have been active in our English community, but perhaps do not have the chances yet to join us as students, Pak Rod. So thank you very much once again. The parents of the children giving us a great response in the WhatsApp groups. They are saying that this is a very good moment for us, a good chance to practice the English of our students. Thank you very much once again. We do hope that we can again perhaps meet with better situation. Thank you very much once again, Pak Rod. You, I really like to say that you look like Sean Connery. You know that person? A very famous one.
I do, but actually, you need to. I'm practicing to be Sinterklaas, okay?
Actually,
I see.
I was okay. I tried to say something about that, about the beard, but I didn't actually have the courage to do that. Finally, somebody did that.
Well, all I can say is thank you so very much, Anita. No one has said something so kind to me as to say that I look like Sean Connery. I just think I look like Sinterklaas.
Thank you, everybody. I would like to say thank you, Rodney. I really appreciate your time in this particular time of pandemic. I really actually miss meeting you again, like what we usually have every year. But because of the unfortunate situation that we are having at this moment, we are not possible yet to meet face to face. Although we meet actually virtually. I really appreciate your time. I appreciate the time of my students, yeah, also my colleagues, teachers of Kampung Inggris Semarang, and also Ibu Yunita. Pak Rodney, you still have some words to say?
Oh, I would just like to say thank you, and I'm looking forward to the time when I'm actually able to go back over there and be there in person and berdiskusi lebih banyak langsung.
Oh yeah.
Empat mata.
Sorry, I missed something. Pesi asked me to ask question about kangaroo. Actually, say something about kangaroo.
Yes, certainly. Sorry, I was trying to remember there was one more thing for Fesi and a kangaroo.
Right.
Well, yes, okay. Firstly, kangaroo, we have lots of them. They are just everywhere. Kangaroo, very, very successful animal here. With the arrival of Western people colonizing this country and a lot more farming being put down because of the additional abundance of green stock or grasses, kangaroos have become very, very successful in adapting to that additional food being made available for them. So first fact is that there are actually more kangaroos in this country now than when Western arrivals first came to Australia. So kangaroos have adapted to the arrival of Western style farming. The other thing I was going to say is kangaroo is very tasty. It's a knack. So kangaroo steaks.
Yeah.
I hate to say it. I know they're lovely, furry, jumping animals that look like cuddly bear, and they are. But the other thing too is they're actually a very good source of protein.
Right.
I hate to say it.
Okay.
It's true.
Right. Everybody, the story about kangaroo and also how kangaroo is actually a good source of protein ends our meeting today. Once again, Rodney, I really appreciate your time. It's a pleasure for us here to have you. Thank you, and thank you very much, Rodney.
Okay, thank you, Rahani. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you, everyone. And I hereby conclude our today's meeting with Pak Rodney, a very special meeting. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Sampai jumpa.
Bye. Thank you.